In the past, you've heard people refer to intellect as sharp as attack, or perhaps a beloved adventurer has a razor's wit. And you heard all those descriptions and decided to make things a little more literal. Hi, welcome back to the Geek Pantheon. I am Eric, and today we are talking about the Soulknife Rogue. This one, based on the amount of homebrews that existed prior to Tasha's Cauldron of Everything coming out, and the amount of requests that I've got both in the YouTube comments and on our Discord and just other places to go over the Soulknife Rogue really speaks to its popularity, and it was a fan favorite coming out of 3.5. And yeah, I'm excited to dive into it and take a look at it. Shout out to Doggy Dog Sims for commenting on the Swarmkeeper video asking to do this one, and I added to list based on that request. If you have a subclass from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, or any other D&D source, leave them down in the comments below. I think pretty soon we're going to start branching out into subclasses that don't just reside in one book. So I would love to hear from you and let me know what you would like me to go over. Now, obviously, the biggest thing that I feel like a lot of people are coming to this video who haven't picked up Tasha's yet that want to know is, does it live up to the legacy of the Soulknife? What people were introduced to in 3.5, going in through 4th edition into 5th edition, and now we finally have this subclass that a lot of people have been wanting for a while. And I went back and looked at the 3.5 edition version of this class in 3.5. It was its own class. And I think that it does live up to the legacy started by that one. There are a lot of really similar abilities in intent. It's very clear. Obviously, 3.5 was a much more granular system, and there's just simply not as many feats in 5th edition, and a lot of what powered the 3.5 version was getting bonus feats. So you kind of have to find the line between just kind of throwing 5th edition out and trying to replicate what 3.5 did and allowing for adaptation into 5th edition. And based on that, I think they did a really good job here. And as we do, we're going to break down all of the class features level by level for you. This is not a spellcasting class, so there won't be any spells to go over. And we're going to break all that down before I get into my thoughts on how to play this subclass, parties that this subclass can do really well in, and finally, as a Dungeon Master, how I think you should run your game to highlight this subclass. So first off, 3rd level, obviously, is when you take your Rogue archetype, and at 3rd level, you get your Psionic Energy die. So these are dice you get twice your proficiency bonus amount every day when you finish a long rest, and they start off at D6, and then at 5th level, they go up to D8, D10 at 11th level, and D12 at 17th level, I think. Yeah. So anyway, these dice fuel your psionic abilities. They allow you to do the cool things that you do. Some of them do require you rolling the dice and taking the number on its face. Other times it's just about expending the die and burning it, basically. So yeah, I really like this system. I think it's a really interesting way to put a resource on class features and make things feel special and like, okay, you can only do this so many times. And I think twice the proficiency bonus for something like this based on the abilities you get makes sense. I think starting off with 4, starting off with only 2, if you only went with your proficiency bonus, wouldn't be enough. It wouldn't be fun for every long rest. You'll only be able to do it twice and then, okay, whatever. So 4 times feels right. It makes a lot of sense. And then obviously as your proficiency bonus goes up, the amount that you can do it increases, and the dice increase as well. So let's get into the first 2 abilities that you get in terms of your psionic abilities and what your psionic energy dice fuel. The first one is Psi Bolstered Knack. So this is one where when you make an ability check, then you can roll your psionic energy dice. If you failed that check, you can roll your psionic energy dice to add that amount to your roll. But what's interesting, and I think really cool, considering this is a limited resource, you only expend the die if you succeed. So if I fail a roll by 3 on an ability check, and I roll that dice and I roll a 2, that dice isn't expended for me. I get to keep it. And I think that's going to prevent a lot of players, especially newer players, from holding on to those dice and be like, well, I don't know if this check is important enough to use it on. It takes away some of that anxiety and allows you to roll it. And if you don't do it, okay, no harm, no foul. I get that die back and we can continue on. And the second one you get at third level is Psychic Whispers. So this one allows you to create a psychic link with a number of creatures up to your proficiency bonus. And then you roll your psionic energy die, and that's the number of hours that you all are cyclically linked and you can communicate, essentially. Now, all the creatures involved do have to know a language, but you don't have to share a language to do this. So you unfortunately can't do it with your dog and get some insight into what they want. But anybody can break this psychic link at any time for free. Just, hey, I don't want you in my head anymore, break it off. So this is a good utility one. It's good for those early missions where maybe you're going into a tense situation, you want to be able to communicate with each other, but obviously don't want to talk out loud in front of the enemy. And so you can set this up and you're good for a couple of hours. So yeah, I think this one makes a lot of sense. And it's just a good general, it adds to the psionic flavor. I feel like a potential slip up that you can make when doing something like the Soul Knife is focusing solely on the psionic blades that they can produce and forgetting that this is a psionic subclass. They do have a certain level of just innate psionic abilities, and I think allowing the character to connect their mind with another character really reinforces that idea that, yeah, you're a specialized psionic, but you're still a psionic, so you have some abilities that reflect that. And speaking of the Soul Knife's blades, the other thing that you get at third level is the Psychic Blades. So this allows you, when you take the attack action, you can manifest a blade in your free hand and attack with it. It does have the finesse and thrown properties, and it does 1d6 damage. Additionally, you can do 2-weapon fighting, where as a bonus action, you can make an attack with your offhand, provided it is also free. But it only deals 1d4 damage as opposed to 1d6. So that's how they kind of balance that you're not getting a ability modifier onto the initial attack and then losing it on the secondary attack. You just step the dice down one. And before we move on, if you are enjoying this video, please be sure to give it a like, hit the subscribe button. Like I said, we're going to be doing a lot more subclasses in the future. And if this is your first video here, we've done plenty of subclasses in the past. So be sure to check them out. And also, if you want to talk about this in real time, get my thoughts on anything D&D related or just anything in general, I do stream on Twitch every Sunday and Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central and Saturdays at 7 a.m. if you are an early bird type. Come over, hang out, link down in the description below. I would love to have you. And then at 9th level, we have the Soul Blades class feature. So this allows your psychic blades that you've had to begin getting influenced by your psionic energy dice in a way. So the first one is homing attack, where when you throw your psychic blade and you miss, you can roll a psionic energy die, add the total to your attack roll, and if it hits, you expend the die. But once again, just like bolstered knack, if it fails, if you miss, you don't then have to use it. And the other thing that you get at 9th level is Psychic Teleportation. So this one allows you as a bonus action to roll one of your psionic energy dice, and then you throw one of your psychic blades a number of feet 10 times the number rolled. And then it lands in the ground and you teleport to where you threw it, in an unoccupied space, of course. This one is probably my favorite ability, if I'm being perfectly honest, just because I think it's fun. I think it's something that when you're initially like, how do I make a soul knife in 5th edition? You don't initially jump to teleporting ability by throwing your blades everywhere. And I think that's really cool. I think it's fun, and it does rely on the resource of the psionic dice. So you're limited, but there's no like once per long rest. If you want to spend 4 psionic energy dice 4 turns in a row by just teleporting all over the place, you can do that. It's not the optimal choice, but that's perfectly fine. If you want to be Nightcrawler, kind of, with the psychic blades and just teleport everywhere, do it. At 13th level, you get the Psychic Veil ability. Now, this allows you to, as an action, make yourself magically invisible for 1 hour, including everything that you're carrying with you using your psionic energies. Obviously, all the normal rules for invisibility apply. If you attack anybody, if you force anybody to do a saving throw, your invisibility disappears at that point. But your first use of this feature does not require a psionic energy dice. Every subsequent use per long rest after that does. So this is great. I really like, we've seen a lot of subclasses in Tasha's and more to come that are trying to find different ways to limit your access to abilities outside of just saying per long or short rest. And I really appreciate that. I appreciate that level of player freedom they're starting to give people of, you have this limited resource per day, and you have all of these abilities that you can do using this limited resource. So it creates the ability to be very specialized in different situations. If you're going really combat heavy on one mission, you can throw all of your psionic energy dice into ensuring that your blades hit when you throw them. But if you're more in an infiltration kind of mission, then you can use your psionic energy dice to make yourself invisible. You can invisible, sneak up on somebody, attack them. Once they're taken out, then make yourself invisible again. Then you use a psionic energy dice for that second one, and so on and so forth. So I feel like Wizards is starting to really try to make these subclasses a lot more flexible and give you a lot more freedom. Because if all of these were just once per short or once per long rest, then be like, okay, I have all of these things one time. But you have like these 4, 6, 8 dice that you can get up to 10 dice. And then you have this pool of things that you can do with those dice, but there's no clear direction. You're given a lot of freedom in that regard. And at 17th level, you get the Rend Mind ability. This allows you, when you land an attack that deals sneak attack damage, so a specific kind of attack, not just any attack, that deals sneak attack damage on an enemy, you can force them to make a wisdom saving throw based on your dexterity modifier, 8 plus proficiency plus dex. And if they fail, they are stunned for 1 minute. That's big. I mean, it is 17th level, so you expect these things. It is the capstone ability. But yeah, stunning an enemy like that is pretty substantial. And obviously the enemy gets to repeat the saving throw at the end of each turn. But still, at level 17, your dex modifier is going to be pretty good. You're going to have a high proficiency bonus. So it's not going to be an easy check for them to make. And then additionally, once you've used this feature, you can do it again for 3 proficiency dice. So it's not as loose. But once again, at this point, you have a lot of proficiency dice, so it's less prohibitive than if this was like a first level ability where you're using 75% of your pool to repeat an action. So yeah, I think this one works really well. I like the flavor that they incorporated. Basically, you're using your psychic blade into somebody's mind and causing their mind to shut down for a minute and stunning them for a pretty long duration in a combat encounter. So I really like it. And this combined with like Psychic Veil, where you go invisible, sneak up on somebody, which you'll get the sneak attack damage then on the attack, but going immediately into a Rend Mind, it's really cool. Now let's get into how to play this subclass, in my opinion. My tips for if you want to get this character on the table, the way that you can play them to really lean into the flavor and the mechanics of this character to make them really shine. First off, obviously, at the end of the day, the Soul Knife is a melee or ranged attack specialist. They do attack rolls to do damage, and so they are a frontline character, a combat character. However, because, like I kind of alluded to in my introductory spiel, you want to play this character is a psionic. They have an elevated mind, as it were. And so playing this rogue is kind of that cerebral, intelligent assassin who goes after people in a very intelligent way and knows weaknesses and knows hiding places. It makes a lot of sense to have a psionic that's very intelligent in how they attack people. And so I would really lean into that very thoughtful, like, no, I'm not going to run up to you from across the room and try to stab you in the chest. I'm going to wait until your guard's down and you turn away from me, and then I'm going to stick my psychic blade in your mind and stun you, and then we can just stab you until you're dead. So yeah, I would definitely play the character with a very intelligent mind for how they do combat, as opposed to just playing them like any other rogue, because they're not. They're a soul knife, and they're a psionic, and that's special. And additionally, a hyper-specialized assassin could work really well. This is not mutually exclusive to the first part I said. A character who can deal out a ton of damage as a rogue with their sneak attack abilities, that does not leave behind any physical evidence of the violence that they commit upon people. That's an assassin if I've ever heard one. Now, granted, law enforcement would probably pick up on death by psionics at some point, but if your assassin is smart, then maybe they don't realize that they're a soul knife. So yeah, I really like this for one of those hyper specialized, go in, get stuff done, leave no trace behind, get out kind of character. And that leads me perfectly into parties for this class. Obviously referencing that type of character that you can play, a party that is a spec ops covert working for a government, trying to get in and get out, doing things that like they'll get disavowed if they're caught. This subclass could fit really well into that type of class, like Suicide Squad esque, where you are conditioned and trained to not leave any trace behind of the things that you do. And so even if you have to kill people on a mission, they're not going to have any wounds. They're just going to be a corpse on the ground, and hopefully people will be confused as to how and why they died, and it won't be a bunch of stab wounds and blood everywhere. And the other type of party that immediately jumps to mind, for me anyway, when I think about the Soul Knife, and it's probably a lot to do with just a very similar character who has the appearance of a Soul Knife in the form of Psylocke from the X-Men. An X-Men style character. Psionics always lead me down that path of an X-Men style mutant on the run, not understood. And that's just a lot of times the settings that I choose to play in and why my mind goes there. But I think that a Soul Knife character could work really well in a party like that, of a group of characters on the run, having to look over their shoulders constantly, with things like Psychic Veil, the psychic teleportation, things like that that allow them to move really quickly and go unnoticed. I think could play really well into a campaign dedicated to that, and a party dedicated to that kind of theme. And how a DM should run a campaign for the Soul Knife. I'm really flown from one point to the other today. So obviously, if you want the Soul Knife to really have the chance to shine in a campaign that you're running for them, the first one is, like I've been saying throughout all of these different how to play parties, give them opportunities where the fact that they don't leave any physical damage on their victims matters. Give them opportunities to where that is going to be a huge bonus, because it's outside of other like mental manipulation characters like Dissonant Whispers and stuff. The fact that you can kill somebody and not leave any real trace of what killed them should be a big deal. Should be a cool thing that the Soul Knife can go, wait, aha, they don't know that I stabbed them. That should be a cool moment for them. And so you definitely want to give them opportunities where that is going to make a difference when people come to investigate what the party did. That, oh, what happened? This person just fell over dead. How weird. So yeah, do that. And then also, and this is especially for new players, ask frequently, do you want to use a psionic energy die on that roll? Because getting up to third level and having played a certain way for the first 2 levels, and then all of a sudden getting this thing that can influence your rolls in such an impactful way and get to roll it and potentially succeed on a roll that you would have normally failed on, is something that is very easy to forget about, very easy to overlook in the moment, until it's like 2 or 3 characters down and they're like, oh, I could have used my can I use my science energy die now? It's like, no, we've already moved on. So be sure to ask them. Put a post-it note, or tell them to put a post-it note on their character sheet, but ask them, not every time, but just frequently, like, hey, do you want to use one of your dice on that? You can roll it and add that. And be careful when you do this, because if you only do it when it would make a difference, then you'll start like telegraphing like, oh, well, you should do it now. Ask them even on a roll that they missed by 10, because when they miss, they don't expend the die. So you're not tricking them. You're not taking something away from them maliciously as a DM. You're just reminding them, hey, do you want to do that? And if they say yes, they'll fail anyway. Even if they roll a 6, be like, nope, not quite. But they get to take that dice back, which means that people won't be mad at you for asking that question. So that's the other big tip that I have for DMs running the Soul Knife subclass. So what did you all think? Are you excited to get this on the table? Do you think it lives up to the legacy of the 3.5 version of this subclass? Let me know down in the comments below. Also, be sure to let me know what subclasses I should cover in the future. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Thank you all so much for watching. I've been Eric, and I will see you next time.